Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. I invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Now, there is another line to this hymn that comes in the form of a bass ostinato that repeats over and over, that goes, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. That can just continue on while we sing, Come, come, whoever you are. You can choose which part to sing. I'm going to go back and forth between the melody and the ostinato. So please join me in singing, Come, come, whoever you are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Ven, ven, qual eres, ven, nomad en búsqueda, llamas la vida, la nuestra es la caravana de amor. Ven, otra vez ven, 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 qual eres, ven, nomad en búsqueda, llamas la vida, la nuestra es la caravana de amor. Ven, otra vez ven, ven, otra vez ven, come yet again, come.
Welcome to online worship with First Unitarian Church of Rochester. I'm Shannan, Foos membership coordinator, and today's guest preachers are our own Reverend Simson, our minister Emerita, and Reverend Libby Moore, one of First Unitarian's affiliated community ministers. I call them our own. In the spirit of our summer theme, Be the Church, today's service highlights one of the many life-affirming, soul-nourishing programs offered at our church. Wellspring is a 10-month program of distinctly Unitarian Universalist spiritual development designed to help participants answer Mary Oliver's provocative question, what will you do with this one wild and precious life? Founded at First Unitarian Church in 2005, this program celebrates the depth and breadth of our rich religious tradition. Wellspring offers participants an opportunity for spiritual direction, deeper knowledge of UU history and theology, and by putting our UU faith in action. Reverend Tina and Reverend Libby are Wellspring facilitators, as are Jill Paremba and Julie Sanchez, who are co-leading today's service along with Tommy Snell and Arsen. And I've been a participant of Soul Matters, and I give it 2 thumbs up. Oh, of Wellspring, and give it 2 thumbs up. Behind the scenes, we have Tim Farnham, Emily Sanjanuela, Emma Hale, and our wonderful ushers who are making sure everything happens smoothly today. Here at First Unitarian, our mission is through spiritual connection and community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves, open to wonder and transformation, and serve with love and humility. I just have one announcement today, and that is that we are having coffee hour after service. So please, please, please stay and enjoy some time with our friends and get to know one another, both new and connect with our old friends. Now, let's all take a breath together as we settle into this sacred time and place. Please join me in our chalice lighting and say our unison words together. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation in the fullness of community.
Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to be with you here on Zoom on this rainy Sunday morning. As I was getting ready for our service today, I was reminded of a dinner party that I went to a couple of years ago. You see, we visit our friends in California at least once a year, and every time we come, they organize a dinner party with people that we don't know, but they think we would get along with. On this particular night, there was a lot of intellectual heft in the room. There were two economists who taught at Caltech. Our friends are physicians, there were scientists, there were MBAs, and entrepreneurs. Now, after just a little bit of time, it was pretty clear that we had similar values and similar political leanings. So that was good because it meant it was a less turbulent dinner party. But not long after we sat down, the conversation turned toward religion. Now, at that point, no one knew that I was a minister, except, of course, my husband, Joe, and our hosts. And the conversation started going around about all of the things that have, the evil things that have been done in the name of religion, about the moral demise of the Christian right, about the horrible traumas that have been inflicted. And I couldn't agree more with my friends and their guests about all of the horrible things, but I just wasn't ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I raised my hand, literally sitting at the table, raised my hand and said, for the purpose of transparency, I just need you to know that I'm a minister. Cold, stone silence. It's the best way to stop a conversation. If you ever need to do that, you can borrow my technique. After everybody sort of recovered from that, there were questions that came up. Well, what do you believe in? What's the foundation of your religion? Are you Christian? And we had a really lively conversation, and there was a lot of skepticism, and the conversation shifted to, don't you believe you can be good without God? And of course I do, I absolutely do. And then the question came, the question that I always love, which was, why join a church, really? Why? I mean, can't you just join a social action group? Can't you just do this work on your own? And I simply said, what happens when the work is too hard? Who takes care of you then? That's what the church does. It holds you up. And that's why we come to church, right? I mean, we come to church because it offers us a solid foundation of values and principles. We connect to one another for support and compassion. It gives us what we need to do the hard work of living in the world as it is today. Together, we are so much more than we are alone. Together, we are the church. Welcome to our celebration of life. It is so good to be together today.
Please join me in singing our next hymn, O Come, You Longing, Thirsty Souls.
Come, you longing, thirsty souls, drink freely from the spring. And come, you weary, famished folk, and tend your hungering. Why spend yourself on empty air? Why not be satisfied? For everywhere a feast is spread, that's always at our side. For as the rain and snow above fall not in vanity, but for this purpose watereth, to feed humanity. So shall the word of Spirit serve as seed within our loam, that we may bear so rich a yield as brings the harvest home. For we shall go in peace secure, and live in joy sublime. The hills outside will burst with song, the trees will clap in time. No more shall thorns and nettles grow, the bay tree and the pine shall sign for us the eternal name that makes the world a shrine.
Please join with me now in the power of meditation, prayer, and reflection. Feel the collective breath of this beloved community as we turn inward together. This meditation is an excerpt from Letta Neely's poem, Because This Whole Earth is Ours. We must be intimate, magic, when obituaries read like a roll call of our neighborhoods. We must pick sharp shards of bloody souls from bloody pavement and caress them correctly. We are called to suture particular pieces of memory now. We must drape ourselves in dream through death, in hunger, now only for liberation from oppression, which teaches of borderland geographies where even imaginations are restricted, shown barbed wire fences and trenches of murdered comrades. We are called to know the power of language, to make love the only recipe of our desire, to cure in the ways of our elders. We must hack off each finger wrapped tight and desirable around our arms, yanking us to complacency. We must go down home, plant words found in no dictionary, bathe each other with sweet freedom. When the order of things threatens to numb possibility, we must sing long, wordless wails. Right there on sidewalks, when we feel small and packageable. For our tongues know songs to bring raindrops, when they teach us these dry, white seasons. Everything we give our energy to is prayer. May the silence we have shared continue to hold and heal us all. May it be so.
Please join me in singing Loosen, Loosen. We'll sing it twice together and then as a round. You may choose to lead or to echo. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby.
You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, in your muscles and bones. Let go, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go.
This poem was written by Maureen Killoran. I pray this day for the courage to be. The courage to be humble in the face of inequity and pain. To know that the power has been given to me to make a difference. Although not to end all suffering or to save all the whales that populate our days, I pray for the courage of endurance. To keep acting in the midst of despair. To keep trying in the aftermath of failure. To keep hoping in the emptiness that follows loss or change. May courage give me patience. And may I ever know love's healing presence at the heart and center of my days.
I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about the wellspring of our faith, but also this is kind of a yearly tradition. In the summertime, we get together, we talk about a program at First Unitarian called Wellspring. It's kind of like Soul Matters, and we've called it Soul Matters on steroids because it in fact is a deepening program that requires much more from its participants. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to have a conversation with Libby and me and Tom. And we're going to give you an opportunity to think about whether it's something you want to join as a program here at First Unitarian, but also if it is something that the foundation can support your own spiritual growth and spiritual life without being part of the program. So stay with us. I think this is going to be a lively conversation. We called this sermon Drinking from the Wellspring of Our Faith. So I just want to open that question to Libby or Tom. What do you consider to be the wellspring of our faith?
Well, Tom, if you don't mind, I'll just start. And every Wellspring program begins with a retreat. And one of the things we say at the retreat is we begin by remembering the sound and the feeling of the one being, the wellspring of love. And to me, that wellspring of love is the real foundation of our faith, is that we are interdependent and at heart we are one. I mean, that's my own theology, but it also feels like it grounds us as Unitarian Universalists, that principles that begin with the inherent respect and dignity of every being and the interdependent web of all existence, those principles really bring us together as Unitarian Universalists. And the
principle about justice, equity, and compassion for all beings. That is so much of what we do in Wellspring and so much of what grounds us as you use in this world. Tom, what do you think?
Well, I think that the wellspring of our faith is also fed by the underground current of our spiritual ancestors. And I found that diving deep into the wisdom and bold prophetic leadership of our spiritual ancestors and our history as Unitarian Universalists really fed my spirit through the Wellspring program this year, showing that we are not alone in the work that we're doing, and we're not doing it for the first time. But we are part of a lineage, an inheritance of justice work and work that leads us toward radical love and liberation. How about you, Tina?
Well, the other piece of it for me is that Unitarian Universalism is not a creedal religion, right? We don't have a creed we all believe in, but we create covenant together. We create covenant as a church, as a community of people. We create covenants with ourselves in terms of what we expect of ourselves spiritually and how we live that in the world. It's part of our Wellspring program, this covenantal commitment that we have with one another, but it's also a part of our faith, I think, that is the grounding or the foundation. It is a way we choose to live in the world and a way we choose to treat not only each other in the community, but in the wider community of the world. That's so important right now.
I think covenant is really the heart of our faith. And what I love about it is it reminds us that we're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes. And I think, I talked about our spiritual ancestors, and we see that they made mistakes. And yet there's still valuable spiritual insight to feed, to nourish our spirits. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about how Wellspring has formed 15 or so years ago. And I know that both of you were involved in the early stages of Wellspring. Maybe some of the mistakes that were made along the way, and how Wellspring's evolved over all these years.
Do you want me to start, Tina?
You were there at the beginning.
When Reverend Jen Crow first came to this church, and we asked her to develop a program that would give us a chance to explore our spirituality within a Unitarian Universalist context, so that we didn't have to go to another religion or another tradition to do spiritual deepening. And so the program started with basic principles, which were that we would commit to a daily spiritual practice. We would see a spiritual companion or a spiritual director to deepen our own spiritual lives. We would explore UU history and theology so that we understood what we were coming from. We agreed that we would make our small group a priority, that this covenantal group that we established would be an important part of the interaction. And within that group, we learned to listen deeply to one another from our hearts. And that's really one of the basic foundations. And then taking all of that, we put our faith into action in some way in the world. So we ran this program for a couple of years. Tina was in the first group that Joy facilitated, and we were so excited. We thought maybe other churches might be interested, so we took it to General Assembly, and we thought maybe we'd have 20, 25 people, if we were lucky, come. And we were inundated. There must have been 150 people jammed into this little room. They were bringing chairs in from the hallway until the fire marshal said stop. There was this yearning in the denomination for spiritual deepening in our own faith tradition. And So I think some of the mistakes we may have made were assuming that everybody valued the same things we did, like silence and being told what to do. And we have learned to change some of that. Tina, you've seen the evolution of this program. What do you think?
Sure. When we started, we had 1 year of curriculum. And over the next several years, you and me, Reverend Crow, and Reverend Joy Collins, we all worked to develop additional curriculum. We decided to take it on the road. We took it and offered it to other congregations across the US. And we started a website, we started a blog. There was an explosion of interest in it, but it seemed to fit only a certain population. And we looked at that more and more, and then we kind of looked at ourselves and we saw a mirror, right? We were seeing the same faces, mostly white, mostly female, and generally just a little bit older. So we started an advisory team from all over the denomination, and eventually those of us that started Wellspring backed away. We wanted an influx of new ideas, and we wanted different voices. Backing away was a good idea. It wasn't easy because, of course, when you start something, but in order for this to be a true faith-wide offering, it had to in fact grow. It had to grow beyond us. And that's what I love about our faith. In all of the programs that we offer, the possibility that it grows beyond us. Over the course of the last several years, the advisory board has brought in diverse voices. The program has changed. We've changed the way we do our covenanting. The covenant process was elevated to us as a form of white supremacy. That was an interesting experience to look at with open eyes and say, oh my gosh, yes. It's kind of like, okay, here are the ways in which we're going to be together. And you like those ways, don't you? Without really listening to voices from the margin. We changed that process. We listened to the people who were advising us and said, we need it to be different. We changed the way we require or expect spiritual companionship so that it can be more accessible to diversity of people. So I love the fact that our faith gives us permission or expects that of us, right? We're not a faith tradition that is done. It's not like we have all the answers and this is the way you need to be. Each one of us, as we participate in Wellspring, as we participate in our congregations, we change the way in which we are together by our diverse voices. And that really is the foundation, our Wellspring foundation, but also the foundation of our faith.
Yeah. I think that responsiveness to the needs of the people who are involved is a huge part of what we do, is listening to what people are telling us. And that as in every year of Wellspring, somebody says, this should probably change. And we take it to heart and try to change it. And I think, excuse me, I think that lesson is true for everything we do, that it's not just Wellspring, but that it's important as we're involved in work in the world and social justice, that we listen, we listen, we listen. We don't try to impose our own values on other people.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I loved about being in a Wellspring group, that there was safe space to really wrestle with and question my deeply held assumptions, and yet also it was a brave space where we are accountable to one another, that it's not just me wrestling with these things on my own without anybody else to call me into the covenant and call me into love and into justice and into interdependence. And so I loved that there is that radical balance of independence and interdependence that that is woven into the program and through the covenant, that we are held in love and accountability, that we can mess up and we can still return. Though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come.
Right. Right. You know, and I think in the last few years, as challenges in our country have become so visible, many of us in our congregations are working for justice in ways that we never knew we could. And I always wonder for people, what holds you up? What sustains you? And I believe our faith has those traditions. I believe our faith has those foundations. And whether you're in Soul Matters or Wellspring or you come for worship, those foundations are what build that spiritual resilience for us so that we can, in fact, do the work that we are required to do, we're called to do right now.
So we have been doing this program for some years now, Tina. Tom, you just did it this year, so it's newer to you, but I wonder how it has influenced you as an individual and as part of our church.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I was thinking about that today, and I realized that Wellspring called me to be more committed to our church community. While I was in Wellspring, I ran for the board. This is before I went to seminary, so I was on the board. And when I looked around over the course of the years of being, you know, a member of our church and then minister in our church, there were many people who had gone through Wellspring who then turned to become leaders in the church. So I think that's one thing. It's like I owe a debt to my faith, and consequently I need to work to support my faith. I think the other thing it did for me, well, I went to seminary as a result of Wellspring, feeling the need to go deeper in understanding my faith, but also other faith traditions. But it also called me to social action. I'd worked in the social justice field all my life, and yet this called me in a different way. It was a heart pull to share in the work that was required in the world. How about you, Libby? What do you think?
Oh, for me, I think the grounding in spiritual practice has saved my life. I have found the commitment to daily practice has really helped me get through some incredibly difficult times in the past few years, especially, you know, when my husband died, when this pandemic started, I still go through grief and anxiety and loneliness, and still I know that I am not alone, for starters. I know that I have the ability to reach out and know that I am cared for, and that that being in prayer connects me with other people. It doesn't isolate me from other people. I think that's one of the really big things that I've learned, is that spiritual practice helps me to be fully present to what is, however it is, that it's not always wonderful, but I'm here with it. And I think the other thing that I've really appreciated was learning to work in a team with you and Joy and Jen, and now with Tom and with all the other people who are working on Wellspring. I was raised as a, not New England, but an East Coast WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And I was raised Unitarian, but the basic premise was that you had to be self-reliant, independent, do it yourself, don't rely on anybody else. And that is so different from what I understand now about the importance of the interdependent web and about helping one another, and that together we are better than any of us is alone. And I really attribute that to Wellspring, partly to the process of working on the development of it as a team, and to being in these circles of trust that we really share our deepest selves, and know that we're not alone. What about you, Tom?
Well, Wellspring this year and the first year curriculum dives deep into the sources of our faith, our six sources, and that really reignited for me a deep interest in theology, but specifically UU identity. What does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist? So often our faith is described as this anything goes, believe what you want sort of faith, or a faith that doesn't believe anything. And that's so not true. That we do have theology, we do have praxis as a faith. We are not defined by what we're not, but by the things we do believe, by the people we are as a people of faith. And so that has just been so nourishing to my spirit to really dive deep and to seek further, to have that dive deep in Wellspring, but then to say, I'm going to continue this on and continue learning and growing and sharing the things that I'm learning. But I think the biggest blessing that I got out of being in Wellspring this year is the relationships that I built. That there's a sense that I have peers in this spiritual journey, that I have a companion that I can really be vulnerable with, that I can talk to and share the things I'm thinking about, the things I'm wrestling with, the things that are draining me, as well as the things that are nourishing me and have been refreshing. And that has gotten me through so much. My group this year started, it was a group of religious professionals, so it's all people who work in churches in various ways, music directors, RE directors, spiritual companions, and we started before the pandemic. But once the pandemic hit, there was this real sense of exhaustion and confusion and sadness, and being able to hold space for one another and say, I see you, I feel what you're feeling, and we're going to be okay because we're here for each other. That was just so life-sustaining in what was an incredibly difficult time, an incredibly difficult transition. And what I thought was so interesting was because we were a group of religious professionals from all across the country, we were already on Zoom. For many years, Wellspring has been an in-person spiritual experience, but I know that the Wellspring sessions that are starting up now are all happening online due to social distancing. And I can attest that this year, even though we were online, there were still incredible opportunities to build connection and intimacy and vulnerability, a real loving, covenantal small group experience through the power of Zoom. And I will admit, I was a little skeptical at first going into it, saying, can this be done? But I was just really blown away by how powerful the experience was, even in a digital medium.
And I think that's like critically important, because it looks like this year, all of us are going to be on Zoom for the entire year of our faith community together, our worship services, our programming. And as some people shy away, maybe because they're not comfortable with the digital, or because they're not sure, to your point, Tom, that it's going to create that connection. We know that it does. Libby and I have been teaching Wellspring on Zoom for people across the country for what, Libby, 3 years now? And I trust that, once again, whether it's Soul Matters, whether it's your social justice group, whether it's Wellspring, you can get that resilience together, that foundation together, in a digital way. It's not the same as being able to hug each other and connect,
Right.
But it is possible, and it's important, I think, that we're able to do that.
Yeah, and that sense of spiritual community is what replenishes us in this incredibly difficult time now.
Yeah. Something we need, and gives us that resilience to do the work that we need to do.
Yes.
Because that's not going to go away. Just because we are in a pandemic, the work still needs to be done. And Libby, you said a while ago that we're older, right? And so we don't get out into protests because of our vulnerability, and yet other people in our community can do that. So what we can do is that we can help support those people in the programming that the church offers. So I think people might wonder, I mean, is there anything else about Wellspring that we may not have touched?
We could go on for hours, probably, Tina. I think
I think we could too. I think we could too. So, you know, when we were talking about doing this conversation, we didn't want it to be an infomercial. So I want to acknowledge that Wellspring may not be for you, but the foundations of our faith, the sources, the covenant, the love, the connection, those are the gifts of our tradition. They're the gifts of Unitarian Universalism, and they sustain all of us, whether you are in Wellspring, whether you are in Soul Matters, whether you sing in the choir, even though you can't right now. That's what sustains us. On the other hand, if you're interested in Wellspring, we want to let you know that we are starting a new session. We started one over the summer. It was something Reverend Sherry asked us to do because people were home and needing connection, and that one filled up really quick. We're going to be starting another one at the end of August. It starts with a retreat. It's August 27th and 29th for a couple hours each night or each day. And there's room in that group. There might be another group in the fall of Sources, the first year of curriculum. If you're interested, contact Reverend Libby or myself, and there'll be stuff in the not on the website, but on the Facebook page and in connections about that. And we can answer any questions or support you in how to make that decision if it's right for you. Otherwise, just please take what we have learned and said and make it your own.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. And thanks, Tom, for joining us.
I invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. Every Sunday, we take up an offering which is split between our church and organizations in our wider community that lead us in the work of justice and compassion. Today, our collection will be split with Connect and Breathe. Originally founded 10 years ago here at First Unitarian, this nonprofit 501c3 operates a secular and unbiased hotline offering a safe place to talk openly and honestly about abortion without stigma, debate, or imposing any political or religious ideology. Every caller is treated as an individual, respecting each caller's own decisions and beliefs. Connect and Breathe is here to listen. There are a number of ways to give, including Venmo, Simple Church, or by mailing in a check. Please give generously to support the work of Connect and Breathe and First Unitarian Church.
Please join me now in singing our closing hymn, As Tranquil Streams.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall
Please join me now in saying our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Dear ones, as we leave this time of drinking from the wellspring of our faith, may we remember that this beloved community nourishes us and the world. Go and do the work of justice and compassion and love, knowing that we are not alone. In this community, our wellspring of faith is constantly replenishing us. Go in peace, go in love. May it be so, and amen.